All right, so today we're going to go over the bandsaw safety. First thing I seen when I come out here, which somebody else come in here and use that, and that's what I talked about, not leaving stuff plugged in here, but somebody left this plugged in. We never want to do that because then it's just a bump of a button and it's on, and you know, a lot of people come in and out here. So make sure we're unplugging it. Bandsaw, this has a pretty small blade on it, so it's going to cut our half circles there pretty easy. Yes.
It's plugged in, you're putting your hand on the blade.
I know. Small blade. There's different width blades. If you got a wider blade on there, that's for more straight cuts. And you got to watch how you cut. You cannot force this or that band will snap. Now, last year I don't think we had one snap. The year before we did. And the student that was running it, it really scared him. I mean, it makes a loud bang. One thing you got to really watch for. It may have came off, but it didn't bust. When they bust, they're really loud. What you have to be careful of is you never, I don't mind somebody standing here watching somebody use it, but you never want to be standing over here because when this blade breaks because of the rotation of the blade, that blade, if it comes out, it's coming over here, okay? So you kind of want to keep your fingers away from that side also, whenever possible. You can see it has one of these trays just like the table saw. That's for if you're making straight cuts. You can put one of the miter gauges in there and slide it through. Of course, you don't want to be cutting fast. If you turn this thing on and it has a funny sound, shut it off and we'll adjust it. The adjustments are up here, blade tension. So we got to watch that. If you really force it, you'll hear it bogging down. That means you're trying to do too much with it, so you got to back off a little bit. Main adjustment for this thing is right here, this depth. So if you think about saw blades, what do we leave a saw blade so it cuts through a piece of material? With a table saw or a circular saw? How much distance thicker than the material? You want to do about the same with this. Okay, so this is adjustable here, this depth between the table and this. That's adjusted right back here. There's a knob and you loosen that and it lets this thing slide up and down. So you want to make sure you're adjusting that. Now, what we're going to be cutting on to start with is this 3/4 because we're working on these. You got to be a little bit careful because you're cutting something pretty thick. Okay, you can't force that blade. Now, if you were cutting thinner stock material, you could do this fairly reasonable fast and make a pretty good arc, and you don't have to do too much work to that. When you're cutting 3/4, if the blade is really forcing to stay at that line when you're cutting, sometimes you have to come in here and make relief cuts. So you cut straight into that line and then make your arc. Now I've cut a few things on this and it's tended to be cutting this pretty good, but we'll try it here and see if we're gonna have to make those relief cuts in just a second. Now with this, because a lot of times you're cutting straight in or you can't stay exactly on that line, it's really hard to. Your finish cut or to that line should be done by sanding. Okay, so you do not want to cut and try to get right on that line because what will end up happening, you'll cut it small, you'll get over the line, or you'll have some notches in there where you've made your notches, there'll be cuts in and you can't get rid of them. So remember, you're staying pretty good to the outside of the line, even leaving a little bit of wood there, and then we'll sand that last little bit, okay? So first thing is adjusting so you're only about 1/4 inch, so you can bring that right down to your wood and just raise it up a little bit. Like I said before, I'm not going to get a tape measure out, but you're just going to kind of see that. And what that is so if something catches, there's a stop there. If it catches the wood and binds up so it don't come slamming up and suck your fingers in there. Like I said, you do not want to be on this side of it. So I'm going to go ahead and start this up. Try making my cut here. So it doesn't really matter where you start. like that, you'd want it ready to suck. It must have sucked a piece of wood down in there. So if it starts making a funny noise, you want to shut it right down. Okay, so I'm going to shut that off, and I did get over just a little bit there, and we can fake these in a little bit, but you want to leave just a little bit of that line like that, and then we'll sand to that. Does that make sense to everybody? Okay, that's the basic thing with a bandsaw. Don't shut that off yet. Cleaning this up, by those safety tests, and you really shouldn't just be raking this stuff off here. I don't know what happened to it, but we'll get something. I usually have a little chunk of wood laying in here that lays in there flat, but you can grab that out and push that stuff out of your way when you get a buildup here. Rather, don't be brushing your hands up in there. No fooling around. This machine's really loud, so I don't want anybody distracting the person here. I did have a Tecumseh student that used it at Tecumseh, ended up cutting the end of his finger off because he was sitting here cutting. Somebody come running by and whacked the back of his elbow and shoved his finger right into the saw. So, like I said, anything like that happens in here, you will not be in my program. I mean, there's no call for that in the shop at all. I don't want to see anybody getting hurt. So horseplay, but when you hear this thing running, somebody's here, and especially with these, they stick out pretty good. Watch how you're walking by, because you could even just bump this and cause their hand to go in. So we got to be observant about what's going on around us. So does anybody have any questions on this? All right, I think I got the tension of the blade set pretty good. So it should be ready to go. So you can go ahead and shut that.